Welcome to this afternoon's Advice Line Live Q&A. My name is Sophia Bukiel and I'm the Community Advice Services Manager here at Scottish Autism, and I have the absolute pleasure of being joined today with some colleagues from our Advice Line team. Sarah Louise, who is our Senior Community Advisor. Thank you for joining us this afternoon, Sarah Louise. And also Kirsten Duncan, who is a community advisor within the Advice Line team. Again, welcome along again this afternoon, Kirsten. And again, thank you both for joining this afternoon. As always, in terms of our Advice Line live events, we'll be looking to obviously kind of engage with yourselves that are watching. So if you've got any questions for us, any of the three of us, please submit your questions and we'll obviously do our best to answer those as we go. But as always, to start the event, we do have some pre-submitted questions. So I guess we'll be starting to look at those if that's okay with the two of you. Like I say, I'll keep an eye on the comments if there's any other questions coming through. But in terms of our pre-submitted questions, there is no surprise. We are in the month of December, where weather starts to get quite cold, and I guess a lot of people's thoughts start to turn towards the festive period and Christmas and what that has to bring. So a lot of our pre-submitted questions today are kind of on that theme, which is no surprise. So our first question, and Kirsten, I'm gonna kind of put this one to you, but our first question is, my son really struggles with the change over the festive period. Do you have any suggestions or advice on how this can be supported?
Yeah, I think quite often we'll signpost people to visuals which can be really, really helpful. So visuals come in many forms: objects, photos, pictures, symbols, videos, as well as text as well. So many autistic individuals benefit from visual support to help processing information. I find visuals really, really helpful personally. Often people associate visuals with younger children or pre-verbal individuals, but it can help right through the lifespan. It doesn't matter how old you are. So things like countdown calendars to Christmas Day itself, or a visit to the panto, if you are going to a show like that, sort of showing some video clips in advance of what that looks like. Visual sequences, for example, if there's going to be a break halfway through a show that you're going to, that, you know, to kind of take away that element of surprise. It's often about things that are predictable. I think sometimes predicting things can be quite a challenge for autistic people. So knowing what's going to be happening can really sort of alleviate that anxiety, which can lead to sort of dysregulation. Getting a timetable from school can be really helpful because everything changes in school. I'm from an education background myself, and I know how children really find it difficult in school with all the changes. All of a sudden you're going to, you know, nativity plays and lots of different things to your usual routine during the day. So things like getting a timetable from school can be really helpful. When the school lunch is going to be, because all of a sudden you're in the lunch hall and there's music playing and it's completely different. You weren't expecting that. You've got Christmas food, so always sort of having that option of knowing that you can have a packed lunch and it's okay, that doesn't need to change for you. We've got a link on our website about information sort of preparing for the festive season, which can be hopefully helpful to you. If you have a look at that could go in the comments. If you have access to a computer, making visuals for a young person with the young person can be really helpful, so that they know exactly what everything means in it. You can access various websites of pre-prepared visuals if you don't have those to hand as well. So yeah, I would advocate visuals all the way.
And yeah, I think, you know, change over the festive period, it's not just kind of one part of life, it's kind of everything in terms of school, home life. There's a lot of different, I guess, elements of change and over that time. and you know, using visuals can be quite supportive for some people, like you say. And visuals can come in many different kind of shapes and sizes, shall I say, in terms of it can be that countdown calendar where it's a visual kind of crossing off, or like you say, it could be objects of reference, it could be videos, for example. So lots of different options there. But I think, as we would always say, in terms of, you know, if you're looking for to kind of talk through your specific circumstances at this time of year and what's going on for you in terms of that change, please, 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 as always, get in touch with the advice line, where the community advisors would be more than happy to kind of talk through in more detail on a personalized kind of perspective in terms of how to support change over the festive period. So no, thank you, Kirsten. That was really thorough there. I guess on the same theme of, I guess, the festive period and change and things that happen over this period, we've had another question where it's in relation again in terms of their son, where they find it difficult when family all come together at Christmas. And I guess their question is what can I do to make that easier for him? And Sarah Louise, I'm wondering what you might have to add in relation to that on top of what Kirsten's mentioned already.
Yeah, so I think, as Kirsten said, Kirsten and I are both big believers of visuals, that can be really supportive. So that might be visuals on letting her son know who's going to be there in advance. That unknown might be quite stressful. So where is it they're going? Who will be there? It may be speaking if they're going somewhere other than their own home to have this family event. It may be speaking to that person and saying, right, is there a safe space that my son can go to that's really quiet, so that if things do become overwhelming, actually he's got a bit of an exit point there to go and spend some time to himself. It might be beneficial to arrive before lots of other people do, so that he's familiarised himself with where he is. And it may be that fidgets, ear defenders, ear loops, that they might be really beneficial to some children. I think that if your child is at that age and stage of having that conversation, it might be something quite specific that they're struggling with. I remember having that conversation with my daughter, and it was going to houses where they had a real Christmas tree, because actually she really struggled with the smell. So it's having that discussion with my family members and saying, can we light some lovely smelly candles beforehand? And it really worked. So sometimes it can be quite specific. So if they're able to have that conversation with you, then that might be really beneficial. And if it's on Christmas Day, maybe it's about, instead of, Kirsten was talking about this Christmas lunch, it's all quite different. Maybe it's about them having their favourite meal, and it doesn't need to be that Christmas dinner that everybody else is having. It's okay for them to have what's comfortable and safe for them, particularly if they're in a different environment.
Definitely. And yeah, there's lots of different things to consider when coming together as family. Is it kind of in relation to the noise and the busyness that comes with that, or what is the plans for the family coming together? Is it a different environment? There's an awful lot of different things, I guess, to consider in relation to that. And like you say, Sarah Louise, dependent on age and stage, it may well be that actually can the individual themselves articulate what it is that actually is maybe kind of causing stress in relation to that family gathering. So no, you're quite right there. And I do see that we've got a couple of people commenting underneath, and they're quite specific questions. And I guess, James and Craig, what I would say is I have taken note of what you've mentioned specifically under the comments here. But what I would say is if possible, if you could private message us some contact details, we'd be more than happy to have a conversation with you out with the event today, as they are quite specific, and I think it probably requires a bit of a kind of more extensive conversation in relation to the points that you're mentioning. However, if there are other people that have any other questions specific that are kind of answerable in this space, please do pop them in the comments below. And like I say, I am keeping an eye on them underneath. On the theme of obviously this time of year in December, we're moving slightly away from the Christmas theme here, but still within the December theme. And I guess we've received a question specifically in relation to somebody's daughter, and they're saying, my daughter is struggling to wear a coat in this really cold weather, but isn't recognizing she's cold. Is this something other autistic people experience? And also, do you have any kind of advice in relation to this particular area of concern. And I guess as a parent, they are going to be concerned that they're going to get extremely cold in the weather. I mean, it's minus where I am today. So, Kirsten, have you got any thoughts in relation to that one?
Yes, certainly senses can very often be affected by, in some way, by autistic people. They can experience hypersensitivity to things, so being overly sensitive, or they can experience hyposensitive, so kind of undersensitive to the way they have their sensory processing affects them. Equally, people can be hyper and hyposensitive, so things can fluctuate over the course of a day. You don't have to be specifically one or the other. There's also the sense called interoception, which is more and more sort of talked about these days, which is you could be described as how you're feeling at any given time. So feelings of hunger, thirst, temperature, like this young person, needing the toilet, and your emotions as well. So often autistic individuals miss out on the sort of building up signs that inform them that they've got to take an action. So for example, sort of suddenly needing the toilet or realizing too late because they've not got that build up of knowing that their bladder's full, or not noticing it's cold before they get extremely cold. So missing signs like shivering and or sweating, being too cold or too hot, and then acting on this by sort of taking a coat off or putting a coat on. So it can be very variable. And there are ways to develop interoception skills. Things like mindfulness, meditation, and yoga are all quite good for sort of being in tune to your body. We've actually got a list of mindfulness activities for children and young people on the website. And we've also got our Click and Connect group, a mindfulness group as well. We can also kind of model things sort of about how we're feeling to kind of help people as well if they're finding that quite a challenge. You know, for example, my mouth's dry, I've got a bit of a headache. That usually means I'm thirsty, so I better get a drink. Sort of talking through how you're actually feeling and how your body is coping with something. My hands and feet are cold to touch, I'm shivering, I need to put more layers on. So having that sort of heightened awareness, your body's actually telling you to do that, and sort of understanding that. Sometimes layers can be better, sort of wearing layers rather than a big heavy coat if it's a sort of sensory feeling as well. So just kind of adding things on there. So maybe a fleece or a hoodie, or having their hood up as well can sort of trap in air. But it can be really difficult. And you know, we do see a lot of young people who seem to be very resilient out in the cold weather, and it's possibly us that's feeling cold because they look cold.
Yeah, and I think there's some really kind of relevant suggestions there, Kirsten, that you've made in terms of supporting that kind of understanding. And you know, we've got Craig coming in as well in the comments in terms of other suggestions that can be helpful as well for what you've just described there. And it's great, Craig, that you're kind of feeding into that as well. And yeah, I think you know, again, in terms of those types of scenarios, sometimes it is quite helpful for us to have, I guess, further conversations around that particular area of concern. You know, to actually really establish what is going on there for that particular individual, so we can give the best advice and guidance possible that is personalized. So again, Kirsten, you've obviously given some broad kind of suggestions there, but what I would suggest is if you are looking for kind of more in-depth personalized advice, support, and guidance, then please contact the advice line. I guess I would say again is anyone that's watching, if you've got any questions that you kind of specifically want to put in that we can answer via the event today, please pop them in. And like I said, James and Craig, your particular questions that you've popped in, I think it'd be great for the advisors here to actually have a bit more of a further kind of conversation with you, either over the phone or via email, whatever's more comfortable for both of you in relation to your questions. So if you pop us over privately your contact details, the team will kind of make contact with you separately. We do have one final pre-submitted question for today, and again, it's on the theme of festivities. It's been quite a theme for that in terms of our questions. So our final question, and hopefully we might get some other questions in the meantime, is: my child has a Christmas party at school, and I guess it is that time of year where Christmas parties are kind of popping up here, there, and everywhere, whether they're related to school or within friendship groups and families. But there's a Christmas party at school. The child's really worried about this, but would also really like to go. So it's kind of I'm worried and I'm stressed about particular elements of this party, but also I really would like to go to this Christmas party. Um, and I guess the child has fed back that they find it too noisy and they're unsure about the food. And I guess the question is do we have any suggestions around how this can be discussed with the school? So, Sarah Louise, I'm gonna pop this one to you.
So I think, yeah, that can be exciting and a bit worrying as well if you don't have that overview again. So it's that kind of preparation. So I think it's just about touching base with the school and just asking for a chat about what reasonable adjustments they might be able to put in place for that child. I'm not sure if it's a within school Christmas party or whether it's a night with kind of Christmas disco. But for example, if the noise, is too overwhelming for your child, you could ask the school if they could create a quiet area where this child could go. And it might be that the school can provide some photos beforehand of where the quiet area will be. If the Christmas party is in the hall rather than the classroom, then a photo of that might be good, so that you can sit with your child and look at the quiet area where the food might be put out and things like that for that preparation, so that there's not this big unknown around it. I think that's really important. It may be that you discuss with the school a packed lunch for your child if the unknown of food seems to be quite tricky, or it may be that the school can give you an idea of what food will be provided, and then you can kind of have that conversation with your child and maybe some visuals around the foods, again, to kind of limit that uncertainty around the party. I think that, you could suggest to the school that it might be that your child has a wee card and they can show a trusted staff member that wee card, just a piece of cardboard, and they can show that when they're feeling overwhelmed or worried, as they might find that difficult to articulate within the school environment. And then that staff member will know, okay, they've shown this card, they're feeling a bit overwhelmed, let's take them to the quiet area. And if it's that out with school, later in the evening Christmas party, they may be looking for parental support. So actually that might be a really good idea for the parent to go and support with that after school party, and then that's kind of a security for the child to have their parent in the building. And then it kind of goes to, if it's loud, does your child like ear defenders? Do they like ear loops? Is that maybe something that they could use in that environment? And could they have a fidget with them to support them in that environment as well? So I think talking to your school about all those kind of reasonable adjustments and putting that plan in place for your child could be really beneficial.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep, definitely. I think a plan is probably important in that particular instance. And I think it's, working with the school in relation to kind of getting that plan, but also the young person being involved in that planning as well. So they feel that they have a bit of control and ownership over what's going to happen during that time. And there'll always be those variabilities where maybe there's something that we can't include within the plan, but I guess it's kind of being aware of the different possibilities that could arise within that plan. So no, I think it's all about a preparation, and I think we've spoken quite a bit today in terms of our questions, not in relation to the festive period specifically, that actually preparation, support, and planning is really key to the kind of festive period, particularly due to all the change that kind of, I guess, can occur over that time. Um, I'm not seeing any kind of new particular questions coming through. However, I am just seeing that one has come through, and I'm gonna kind of look at it from a kind of more broader perspective. And in terms of this individual, obviously, again, we would be more than happy to have a more of a specific conversation relating to your son. But I guess it's around careers. And I guess that big decision time in terms of future next steps, moving on from secondary school to, I guess, I'm going to say further education, or whether that's into an apprenticeship or a career of some sort. And I guess both of you having come from some slight education background, I'm thinking we can probably touch briefly upon this. But I guess, how can young people be supported in terms of exploring their next path in terms of future career, whether that be to further education or to be to apprenticeship or other avenues? And I'm gonna say Sarah Louise, if you kind of want to make a start on that.
Yeah, so again, it's, you were talking, Sophia, about the individual being really involved in that. So I think it would start with a discussion on what they're looking to do. Is it kind of going to further education, or are they looking for an apprenticeship? And then looking for what's available in your area. It is quite a broad question without knowing kind of the specifics of the individual. But there are some really positive kind of organisations out there that would take on apprenticeships and that are really inclusive with the career path that the individual might be taking. It may be really speaking to in school, there might be a business advisor that they can have that conversation with and just explore what might be next. And I think it's just about, for parents, just I think it's just embracing what their next step is, and really supporting them with that.
Yeah, and I think, like you say, it's about exploring, I guess, I'm going to say dreams and aspirations for the future. What is the dreams and aspirations for the future for particular individuals, and exploring what that is. But then I guess considering if that's achievable, and whether actually what do you need to get there. And I think that's where it's really important, where I guess the school do come together in supporting those conversations, but also a careers advisor being engaged in that as well, in terms of those dreams, aspirations, and actually, like I say, what's achievable, and what's possible, and what is required, or what is the criteria to access certain opportunities as well, is probably a big thing, especially based on the question that has been put in, that's quite specific. But again, I feel it's actually a conversation probably that is probably more supportive to have on a one-to-one basis. Kirsten, do you have anything else to add in terms of, I guess, exploring next steps into the future, further education, that side of things that people can consider?
I think there, like you said, sort of writing into having a discussion sort of more one-to-one about that would be helpful. Places like Skills Development Scotland, Enable Works, there are different places that will help out careers advisors and disability employment advisors at job centres as well. There's quite a lot of information that we could send out to hopefully help with that. And so specifically for different areas as well, whichever local authority it is, also will have, I think it's No One Left Behind. They have advisors as well. So I think links like that might be quite helpful for this person.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's people coming together to support conversations to explore things further. So I guess that's all our questions in relation today. And like I say, for those individuals that I've mentioned earlier, and obviously the question around kind of future pathways and work, please send us a message in terms of your contact details, whether that's a phone number, an email address, whatever's most comfortable for you in terms of us communicating with you. And we'll be in touch in relation to those specific questions if you want, obviously, a further conversation in relation to those. I guess I'm gonna kind of round it up at this point in terms of our lunchtime question and answer for today. It's been great having a conversation with the two of you today about obviously the festive period, December and the cold weather, but also future career paths. This is our last Q&A for the year, but we will be hosting them again in the new year. I guess whilst we are live, just to let people know that our advice line will remain open as usual, Tuesday to Friday, 10 till 4, up until Friday, the 20th of December. The advice line and our community advice services will then be open sporadically over the festive period. So they will be open on the 23rd, the 27th, the 30th of December, as well as the 3rd of January from 10 till 4. And then our advice line will reopen for the new year on Monday, the 6th of January. In the new year, our advice line will be changing its hours based on feedback that we've received. So our advice line come the new year, as of the week beginning, the Monday, the 6th of January, our advice line will be open on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday and Friday from 10 a.m. till 4 p.m. So on that note, I wish everyone that's watching a kind of restful festive period. If you do require any advice, support or guidance in the run-up to that period or over that period, please do get in touch with our advice line. And again, Sarah Louise, Kirsten, thank you both for joining me this afternoon. Okay, take care all.